Hey, welcome to Panzer Garage again. Today we're going to look at the Academy Tiger 1 German heavy tank, early production version with the interior. This is an old kit from the mid-90s, but still I think relatively good, except for, there's a couple of minor things. If you're a real detail guy and want exact historical accuracy, this is probably not for you, or you'd have to make some modifications. But in terms of just building a model, it being pretty much near enough, most people wouldn't know the slight differences that, or the slight errors that are in there for the age of the kit. On the side of the box we have some art there of the finished product, and pretty good inside detail. We'll go through some of the errors basically in a minute. Side of the box, model number 13239, and some examples again on the other side. At this stage I'm not exactly sure which one I'll go with, but I'll probably end up painting it just the Tunisian colours there in 712, just to make it a bit easier to do. I've got some other tigers to do that I'll do camo on. But so far I've started the actual build, but I'll take you through where I'm at with the sprues and that, and we'll have a little bit of look at the detail and have a look at where I'm at with the painting. And then over the course of the video you'll see it gradually get built. So this video has basically been pieced together. So essentially that's the cover art of the box. Quite a big box because of the amount of sprues. 14 sprues in all. Just to clarify one issue though that I see around on the internet, it's actually not a Tamiya kit reboxed. It's an Academy kit, and we can sort of clear that up now. In terms of sprue, there's 7 sprues for the Tiger itself. I'll take you through those quickly. We've got these, which are essentially the fifles for the rear. The later version, the earlier version's up here, but I've cut it out and made already. But it comes with early and late fifles. The detail on them, as you can see, for their age being mid-90, it's actually not too bad. Yeah, okay, you could get some additional parts for tools, etc. But it depends if it's worth spending that sort of money on it. I have decided to get some PE on some things, but I've yet to decide whether to do more. Here we have some more. This is a bit of a mix of the inner as well. You've got the internal fans and radiator. Is that the radiator there? No. But they're the extractor fans at the rear of the engine bay. And just various other sort of standard details, some internal components there for inside the turret. But again, you can see, yeah, okay, the level of detail is quite old, but for their age, they're actually not too bad. And I think once you put them all together and make a vehicle that is quite busy, that's just the same sprue again. When you get a vehicle that's going to be quite busy anyway, I think, going into too much detail and such a small model, it's going to get lost anyway. Yeah, if you're doing a 1:16 or 1:6 or something like that, may be different. But anyway, here we have turret components here as well. As you will see, the first area you've got here is the turret. The modern version of the turret is not symmetrical. One side's fatter than the other. As you can see there, that is symmetrical, so that is in error. However, most people aren't going to really know that anyway. And I understand too the cupola ring there is probably a little bit too far back and a little bit too in to be accurate as well. But again, for the sake of building a model with some pretty good internal detail to just give people an understanding of what an inside of a Tiger looks like, you know, is it really a big issue? That's what you've got to sort of decide as a modeler. Modern cuts of the model from Tamiya, etc., have rectified it. I'm not sure if Academy has, but certainly I only bought this a couple of months ago, so this is still the same. Obviously, I decided to replace the L56 with another version, with a aluminium version, which I have here, which I've already constructed. I think that will look a lot better. The only problem is it's not an exact fit, squeeze fit in, so I need to use some putty to sort of round it out. But I think that'll be better than using the older version of this gun here. Inside the turret, the turret is two-piece as well. Again, it bothers some people, it doesn't bother others. You know, look, at the end of the day, if you're going to put, when you join these together, if you're going to put the toolbox on the back, and of course you've got the mantler going on the front, you're not really going to see the joins anyway. So you just got to sort of decide whether it's a big issue, and or use some putty to sort of fill the gaps. You've got some detail on here on the hatches. Again, it's okay, it's not as good as say modern Dragon, but for its time period it would have been pretty much up there with the best in the business, if not better. Like if you take, I've got a Tiger from Tamiya of the same period, and I think the detail on this is better than the Tamiya version of 1995. So again, you just got to put it into perspective of its era. Again, you've got some other components here for the top of the vehicle, or the rear top of the vehicle, and where the turret sits. Again, you'll notice on these two that there's a fair degree of pin marks, but I guess that's expected of those eras, and I think, you know, the cabling, I'm tossing up whether to get extra cabling, aftermarket cabling, because I think that you know, these aren't that flash, so it might be worth investing in that. I haven't decided whether to go down that path yet. And of course you've got two sprues of wheels and rounds. Again, if you look at the details on the wheels for the time period, again, not that bad. Not as good as obviously modern die cuts and modern moulding techniques, but for the time it's not too bad. It'll do for the sake of what I need to do it for. And again, to the rounds at the time, actually not too bad, but I ended up buying aftermarket Tamiya rounds that I'm going to use instead. You've got a small sprue here. Got a small, excuse me, it's just my little one. Small sprue here of some of the piping for the rear that join onto the fifers. And you've got 3 sprues of internal, so I've cut a lot of these out as I've started the build already. But again, there's a little bit of flash on these. There's a little bit of flash on all of them actually. But you know, again, it doesn't take much to cut some of it off. The machine guns in that aren't as well detailed as the new ones. I've got some PE barrels that I'm going to use. So I'm going to modify these machine guns with some metal barrels, so it looks a little bit better. I haven't gone the full-on PE though at this stage, which I'm trying to avoid, mainly because I hate working with PE, or a lot of it, particularly with little latches and stuff like that. I find it a bit of a pain, and I'm not sure whether it's the investment is actually worth it. As you can see from the side of the box before, this tank is really detailed, so it's just whether you're that bothered about some of the detail. So some people will be good on them, you know, and they'll spend the relevant amount of time and money to rectify any of those issues. You get 4 sprues of track. At the time they probably weren't too bad from the reviews I've seen, but they're not as good today. Like the guide horns aren't hollowed out or anything like that, so I decided to use frills with those. I use frills on a lot of my stuff, and I find them to be quite good. Instructions. The instructions for the time period actually aren't too bad. Just like this. Just zoom in a little. Booklet form. Pretty standard sort of layout. Again, for its time period. You know, this is Academy stuff I've found over the years pretty easy to follow. I've built a fair few Academy planes in the past, and I find this stuff's not too bad. Again, at the moment I've pretty much done the hull. I haven't done the wheels yet. I'm doing them soon. I've done the rear of the vehicle, and again, you know, some people talk about the accuracy of some of these. You know, whether this is an early version, or an initial version, or a post-initial version. I'm trying to sort of see if I can do it right on the border of a post-initial version prior to the proper early. So I haven't decided that fully yet. I'll sort of talk you through that as we go on in the build phase. Again, pretty detailed back. There you've got the your early fifles, which will be for your post-initial versions, and some of your early versions, and then you've got your later type if you want to use those. But if I'm going the Tunisia option, I'm going to use the early fifles. Interesting to note that Dragon are just about to release a new Tunisian 135 scale Tiger, which, you know, given that it's 2015, the mould will be excellent, I'm sure. So I've got that on a back order, and we can compare that in due course. But I think, you know, the new one will be excellent, and that's based on Tiger 131 from Bovington. But back to this, again, some good detail in there. Like the jacks and stuff like that aren't as detailed as what you get from Dragon these days, but essentially for what we're doing, it will do. And I don't really want to spend that much more money on investing in this, where I'd rather spend it in other areas on other kits. The main purpose of this model for me is just to sort of give people an idea of what, when they come and have a look at my models, that they can see what's inside a Tiger, basically, even though it might not be 100% historically accurate. I've used some references for these two, which I'll show you in a minute as well, which have been quite useful, and I'm sure people have got their own ideas out there. The ciphers on these, the background, from what I understand, it should be white with the black ciphers, which they actually have corrected. I believe in an earlier version, from what I've seen on the internet, an earlier version had it around the other way, unless he got it wrong, of course. and we have the drivetrain, motor, transmission there, rear wheel, front wheel drive, engine at the rear, as all German vehicles tended to be at the time. And again, you've got some more details of the internals here with the radiators, ammo storage, the cooling fans at the rear, which I sort of showed you before, and some good sort of photos down below, which again you can look up online for coloured versions on the side of the box, which aren't too bad. And the rear, you get some PE for the rear grates, which is good. You don't have to spend any extra on that. And of course the hatches you can have open or closed. It actually gives you, in the middle of the document, it gives you a good look at an internal of the Tiger, which is good. From looks like historical drawings. And again, we continue on with the finishing off the top of the vehicle, which you're not going to glue on. Obviously, it's just going to sit there. The tracks, which I'm not too fussed about, I'll be using fools for that. Again, finishing off the top, you've got the rest of the piping from the fifles into the air intakes, which is that little sprue I showed you before. Then you move into the turret. Pretty good. It's in the halves, which is a little unfortunate, but in a way it's easy to work with if you've got to do all this internal detail. You know, it's up to you whether you want to, you know, how you're going to deal with that and solve the join marks. But I mean, it can be done. So hopefully I can solve that as well. Got your smoke launchers there on the turret. I don't know whether I'll put those on, because from my understanding, I don't believe the post initials had smoke launchers. So the Tunisian one that I'm looking at doing probably didn't have them. 715 from the photos that I found mainly on the internet. 712, sorry, that I found on the internet. Again, the other half, some fuel, some water jerrys, coaxial machine gun, the gun mantlet and the gun. So I think this is going to turn out really well when it's done, to be able to have the top off, which is a little photo over here. It's going to look really good. I won't be putting the tracks on because the post initial didn't have that. And the completion components there. Over here you've got various models that you can use. Paint schemes that you can use. I'm looking at 712 to do. You've got Otto Carius version there, although I'm not sure from what I've seen, that may not be accurate. From my understanding, Otto Carius was in a mid version, so this would not be appropriate from my understanding, but you may have to look at that a little bit more. You've got a Dust Right Kursk model there, which is certainly an option, and you've got a Wittmann option there as well that you could do as well. But I think there was some issue with that I didn't choose that for some other reason. I think there was an issue with his vehicle as well. I've already got a separate one for him, the new Dragon one. So I want to keep this pretty much, I don't want to complicate the external colour scheme and take away from the internals of the tank, so hence why I'm probably likely to keep it more of a singular colour, so that it doesn't take away from what I'm trying to have the vehicle model demonstrate by the internals of the vehicle. This may be a bit of a distraction where you could just use a normal model for that. So that's pretty much the booklet and the sprue layout on the back. So that's pretty much the booklet. Not bad. Look, it's pretty easy to follow. It's probably easier to follow than most of the Dragon ones you see. And of course you've got photo etch parts here, which are pretty good. And you've got your decal sheet here as well. So, you know, if you don't use them all in here, you could probably save it for another vehicle. And you've got some parts for you to put for the wheels as well. So where am I at the moment? So you've noticed in there that I started the build already. I pretty much have done the suspension, some of the internal components. You may not see these very well because it's in its undercoat stage of black, so I can shade it better. So at this stage this is black, then I'll do a primer red coat over it, and then the sort of brown black, the red brown colour that they do their priming in for German vehicles, and then I'll build the layers up from there. Done the engine so far, but minus the top of the engine because that'll be white. So again, that's just been shaded. The transmission here. It's good to test fit all these too. I had some little issues with them, so as I was building along, because it's an older model, it's a good idea to test fit, because I've had to shave a little bit off here and there, and off the torsion bars in here, off the small sides, I've had to shave some of it off so they'd fit well. So it's a good idea to do that for those, each one of those. And they're the batteries there. So some of that's been started, and here's the rear so far. There's more to go on the rear, of course, but that's the early Firefalls on there. I forgot that I glued those on actually, so now that they're on, I'll probably end up doing the 712 option just to make it easier on myself, and another internal component here which will fit inside here. So I can and then the engine sits in here, and the drivetrain threads through there into the transmission. So it'll turn out reasonably well so far, reasonably happy with it. The next stage for me is to work on some of the top of the vehicle, get the ammo rack sorted out. I find that with models like this, I'm one of these guys that build piece by piece and put it together, and then I have the components and I paint them all separately, and then I start to then construct it as I go. This is a little bit trickier because you've got to paint the internal and external, so I'll probably do all the internal first on here and the turret, and then I'll paint it fully, and then I'll cover it, and then I'll do the external components of that. So that's where we're at the moment, and I'll be working on the turret and the rest of the top of the vehicle now. So I'll see you again. I'll see you again shortly. Okay, just an update. I was talking before about which Tiger tank I'm going to model and which decals I'll use, which paint scheme I'll use. So I'm going to talk about that briefly now. I've done some research. Some good books out there. There's a couple that I'm going to show you that are good for primary references. Tiger Tanks at War by Michael Greene and James Brown. It's got some good photos in there in terms of the Bovington Tank Museum tiger, the only working tiger left in the world. It also shows you some of the decals. If you end up buying some decals, a 135 scale for the interior, you can get them from Archer's Transfers in the United States. If you Google that, that should come up. Very good site, very good transfers that that you can use in addition to the ones that come with the kit. Some good coloured photos, take you through some issues on different types of ammunition that was used in the Tiger 1 and the Tiger 2. And just some general details about the weapon, the gun, armour, its firepower, how it worked, etc. So not a bad one. In terms of researching the information you need for this though, two very good books. Tigers in Combat by Wolfgang Schneider. This is Tigers in Combat 1. Fantastic book. It details the war diaries, the turret numbers and some photos of, in this one, all the major Schwerpanzer units, the 501st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all the way through to 10, as well as 301 and 316 Panzer companies. Just an example, if I open one here, the 506, December 1944, it details all of the vehicles and their turret numbers. So if that unit changes and does a renumbering mid-cycle or something like that, it's in here as well. So for example, when the 1st SS Panzer Regiment went through its various changes, as we'll discuss sort of in a minute, its renumbering system, it'll go through there as well. So very, very useful if you want to track back a particular tiger, and with a bit of luck you might find one of those tigers in the photos. These are some common photos, but also some rare ones that he's got from Germans from that served in the war. Unfortunately though, a lot of photos have been lost, particularly if they were taken PEW by the Russians. But again, very good, some very good photos of Tunisia, for example. This one's in Tunisia with their early rifles. As you'll see here, on the covers for the exhaust, you can see the slits that were made in there on this very early production, probably initial production Tiger, and you can modify your own by using a hot knife or something like that to do that. So the photos have been very, very useful for any research that you do. Tigers in Combat 2, same author. This guy, incidentally, Wolfgang Schneider, is in the German military, so he's done a very good job of putting this all together. In this one, it goes into the more of the specialist units: Großdeutschland, Hummel, Meyer, the 1st SS Panzer Regiment, 2nd, 3rd. Then its conversion later on into the 501st, 502nd, 3rd, 104, and formations with individually attached tigers as well. So if you're into tiger modelling and you're planning on doing a couple of them, probably not a bad book to invest in. And primarily the information I got that I'm going to talk about now came from these three books. There's also some really good sites. Adam Mann, his YouTube channel's not too bad, talks about some tigers. I think it's called Tigers 101 Dummies. I'll put the link in the commentary after this video, just underneath the video on my page. And Cone, who most of you will know, built a Wittmann Tiger recently from Dragon, and again he talks a little bit about Wittmann there as well. So all useful sort of stuff. The internet's got a lot of information as well, but I'd definitely recommend those Tigers in Combat 2. Restain, he does the Jean Restain, he does the colour plates that are in these, and you'll see a couple of them in here. So very good. You can virtually pick out a few tigers from here and then mould and do some modelling off those. But as you'll recall, earlier on I was talking about doing mine as the Tunisian version down here. The instructions are slightly wrong though. Here it talks about it being in the 504th Heavy Tank Battalion, Afrika Korps, 1943 Tunisia. 712 wasn't in the 504th, so they got the unit wrong. It was actually in the 501st. However, during the period that it was 712, 501st changed its name from February to November 1943 when it was in supporting Rommel in the desert to the 10th Panzer. It was part of the 10th Panzer Division. So you're looking at the African rune there that would need to be on instead of the cat. So basically you could keep the 712, but you'd need to replace the cat with the rune for that period. 712 did not appear in 501st at any other time from the information that I've got. Also 712, the decal is red and white with the red number with the white outline. It's conjecture there whether it was actually red or whether it was clear and just the white outline. So again, you might decide on that as well. But other than that, the early fifles and everything will work well. It's just you'd need to change the decals. When we look at the next one up, 502nd Heavy Tank Battalion, you've got two options. You've got Carius as option, and you've got Tank 123. Now, Carius as option, Tank 217. I couldn't find an exact picture of it. However, 218 has Zimmer it. And everything else I've seen of Carius is generally his vehicles have had Zimmer in it. I'm not sure about his really early one, so maybe I'm a little off. But I chose not to go down this path because I suspect that Carius's tank was mid-production with Zimmer on it. Noting that though, just for some information, whilst 218 had Zimmer, 221 was dark yellow and green and had early fifles on it. Tank 223 had early fifles as well, but Tank 111 was an early vehicle in grey and had no fifles. So you've got a variety of options there if you really wanted to go down that path. I couldn't find a photograph of Tank 217 or Tank 123, so I decided not to go down that option at all. If we shoot up to the top one here from the 2nd SS Panzer Regiment, Das Reich, Kursk, Russia, 1943. Tank number 13, I couldn't find a photo of that. The closest ones I could find was S14, which had late filters, S02, which had late fifle filters, and a photo of early fifles as well. So at some stage they've taken the early fifles off and put late filters on, and it didn't have any covers on it, didn't have any covers on the exhaust pipe. So I think, again, photos are very useful if you want to model a particular tank at a certain period and know exactly that was correct for that tank at the time. So basically what I've decided to go is not the Tunisian option, is go for this option here. That's the 1st SS Panzer Adolf Hitler Division Wittmann's tank. In the instructions it says January 1944. However, this is not correct either. I'll talk you through that now. You'll notice in the diagram currently it's a vehicle with a grey background. Dark yellow background with white. Whitewash. With kill marks. The 1st SS Panzer unit identifier. And S03 as a turret number. Some digging into that. S03 was never a vehicle in 1st SS Panzer at all, so as far as I can tell, SO3 cannot be used because it was never a vehicle that was in there. The closest one was S04. So that can't be used. This is a very early vehicle with early FIFLs. So you do have the option later on of looking at kill marks if you wanted to. However, what I've decided to do is Wittmann's first Tiger. Wittmann's first Tiger was not 1331. Wittmann's first Tiger was tank 411. 411 was this tank, early tank with no kill marks, in grey and white, with a box that in the centre of the box here was all grey, whitewash all on the outside, and 411. It later, from my understanding from the research I've conducted, is that tank was later repainted and renumbered in the new numbering system, and that same tank later became 1331. So because I'm doing a few different Wittmann models, I've got a Wittmann Stug, I've got Wittmann's Last Tiger, Villa's Bocage tank. This is a good opportunity for me to do his very first Tiger, 411. So that's what I'm going to do. 411, I've got a photo of it. It had early FIFLs on it, no kill marks. And as I said, the box with grey inside and 411 in white outline only. So that's been very useful. From my understanding, Wittmann's first Tiger was 411 in April 1943. It had early FIFLs on it. Then it was converted, repainted with new numbering system to 1331. And it had no FIFLs on it. It was still early, obviously. And then later on he went to S21. I don't know if it's the same tank again, repainted. And then at some stage he was in S04 from my understanding. But it was a temporary thing because of an injury that occurred to his commander, Fritz Kling. So from my understanding that's correct. But S21, I have another model from the Dragon, New Dragon release of Wittmann's tank with the crew standing at the front. I've got that one. That's technically the decals of that are S04, but I'm going to do it as S21 because that was his actual tank. I think the one for S04, from what Cohen was saying, is that that was painted up to look like his, but it was actually his commander's tank. Having said that though, from my understanding, he did use that tank for a little period of time. I don't know how long, when his commander was injured. At this stage though, because it was it was April 1943, this is still the 1st SS Panzer Regiment. So they hadn't converted yet to the heavy battalion of 501 when they amalgamated with Das Reich. So hopefully that's useful for you. I think this is a good opportunity to use that tank, which is now should be correct, for Wittmann's first Tiger, using a similar paint scheme. The only question I have is the paint scheme grey and white, or is it dark yellow and white like S21 I think was? I'm going to go with grey and white in this one, simply because I found photos that seem to indicate that it is grey and white, and I found a coloured plate on the internet, whether that's correct or not, which is grey and white. So I think I'm going to keep with that and then go with the development from there. I don't think I'm going to find a precise answer on it, unless someone's got something out there and then they can post it on underneath my video, and I'll certainly have a look at it. But definitely those books have been useful. I'll be using those books for all my Tigers. Archer's Transfers, again those, or whichever transfer place you end up getting yours from, or make them yourself. I really like the idea of getting the turret numbers right. I'm not so precise in terms of which vehicle had what where precisely something was internally located inside the vehicle. As I sort of said before, there's some conjecture whether the internals of this are correct or not. I'm not overly bothered about it, as long as there's not a massive error. as long as you get a representation of what the vehicle may have been. But I'd like to get the turret right, simply because then I can say this is the tank that such and such was in, if possible, and served in this unit in this period of time, which again helps with identifying whether it's an early, mid, late or initial production model. So hopefully that helps. So we'll kick on now with the continue with the build. Thanks. Okay, here we have the final pieces of the major assembly groups before I spray paint them. As you'll see, some of them have already been undercoated already in black, but I've continued on to do the remaining parts, and these will be spray painted in black today, and then undercoated on top of the black with the iron oxide colour that was used for undercoating the paint for German armoured vehicles. So here we have this completed part here with the hull, but with no engine or running gear in it yet. It's over here as we saw before, and it had so that's ready for the next stage. And these are sort of sub-assemblies that the final parts like tools, etc. I haven't put on yet. Some of this needs to be sort of sanded off before I paint it, but this is the gun assembly with the metal barrel that I did, and the rest of the gun assembly there. The whole top, again, finer details haven't been put on. I like to sort of put them on after I do the main component, so that once the main painting has been done, then I'll do that. Of course, when I do paint, I'm going to do the insides first. I'll come back and I'll show you the insides, and then after I've completed all of the inside of the vehicle, I'll then do the outside of the vehicle. The hull gun, the hull machine gun, I replaced that with a metal component. So it's a tank machine gun, so it's a little bit different to a normal MG34. As you can see, there's no holes in this side of the machine gun there for cooling, and the rest of it is just the sub-assembly components for the turret. I find it easy if they're in halves to finalise the internal painting, and then I'll put them together with the base, which is pretty much over here. So that'll all sort of come together roughly like that, and the gun assembly on the front. And of course just the other things, radiators, fuel tanks, fans. So that's where we're at the moment. I'll do that and come back to you. It'll probably be about 2 weeks, and see how we go from there. Alrighty.